Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Alcatraz. For the years between 1934 to 1963, the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary was open, operating, and said to house some of the worst and most ruthless prisoners in all of America. Situated in San Francisco Bay, just 1.25 miles from the mainland, Alcatraz Island became home to those in the prison as well as to the guards and their families who also lived on the island. Those who applied for jobs at the penitentiary would have to move there if they got it. Former resident Chuck Stucker explained that life on Alcatraz was similar to those who grew up on a military base. He further explained that, quote, there was a preschool on the island, a small commissary with milk, butter, bread, a post office. My dad had the first color TV on the island, and it was a real popular thing for the adults. Most evenings you were either at someone's house for dinner or they were at yours. On the other hand, however, not everything can be exactly like it is everywhere else. He went on to say, quote, for the older kids, our school bus was the boat that took us to the mainland. School administrators, they were aware of the fear that we could be held hostage to try and get an inmate off the island, so we had small dog tags. IDs that had our names in association with Alcatraz. You wore it with a small metal chain. Aside from that, Chuck remembers life on the island extremely pleasantly, with a specific mention to the gorgeous views he and his family had from their home.
Coming in at number 9, we have the Lutz family. Andrew and Livia Lutz made 18 babies in 23 years, which, wow. The couple live in British Columbia and have the joint biggest family in Canada. Their eldest is 32 years old and their youngest will turn 10 in 2018, which is quite the age span. The tight-knit family can fill 2 minivans and are quite religious. Alex and Livia, whose children all come from single births, consider their family to be a blessing from God. Coming in at number 8, we have the Kromik family. Valentina and Anatoly Kromik from the Lev-Tovsky area in Russia have 20 children, 2 of which died in infancy and 2 in childhood. Their youngest is currently 24 and their eldest is 48. They also have 10 grandchildren. Their family is quite private, so there aren't very many pictures of them, but they're out there and their Christmases must be epic. Coming in at number 7, we have the Radford family. Noel and Sue were childhood sweethearts when Sue fell pregnant at just 14 years old. Since then, the pair have had 19 children and she's pregnant with her 20th. The pair from Morecambe in the UK were featured on the British TV show 16 Kids and Counting. They own a family-run pie shop, Radford's Pies, and they must need a huge pie to feed their family. The couple married when they were 17 and have 9 girls and 9 boys, with the 10th coming sometime in 2017. Unfortunately, one of their children, Alfie, was stillborn in 2014. The couple also have 3 grandchildren who are the same age or younger than their 4 most recent aunts and uncles. The family is the biggest in all of Britain. Coming in at number 6, we have the Duggar family. Featured on America's TV show 19 Kids and Counting, Michelle Duggar and partner Jim Bob have just welcomed their 20th child, although this time they didn't actually give birth to him. They adopted their 8-year-old nephew Tyler. Now Tyler is the only one of their children not to have a name beginning with J. The rest have names like Jonah, Joanna, and Ginger with a J. The family, who live in Little Rock, Arkansas, allow their children's numbers to be determined by God. Their eldest biological child is 7, but Michelle also delivered a stillborn child in 2011. The pair have 9 grandchildren between them and counting. Coming in at number 5, we have Miriam Napatanzi. By age 37, Miriam had birthed a whopping 38 babies. Can you imagine? I mean, for me, oh no. The Ugandan mother has 4 sets of triplets, 3 sets of quadruplets, and 6 twins amongst her horde. She was married off age 12 to a 40-year-old man and had her first child age 13. Her husband is thought to have children with other women too, disappearing for most of the year and returning to procreate. What a guy. Miriam has 10 girls and 28 boys. Her youngest are babies and her eldest are nearing 24 years old. She's actually widely considered to be the most fertile woman in Uganda and is very happy to live and raise her children. So on this list so far have been monogamous families and their children, being the product of 2 parents. Beyond this point though, families are polyamorous, which of course makes it much easier for a man to sow his wild seed. It takes him a few minutes, if you're lucky, whereas a woman's job isn't over for 9 months. Coming Coming in at number 4, we have the Luiz Costa Oliveira family. A Brazilian man called Luiz fathered 50 children with 4 women, 2 of which gave him 17 children each, and 1 which gave him 15. He also had a cheeky one with an older lady. Living in the northern state of Rio Grande do Norte, Luiz has admitted that he doesn't actually know some of the names of his kids, but who can blame him? He's nearing his late 90s these days. He's actually kind of a fertile miracle. He has said that he loves women, saying the best thing God made in the world was women. There was also other things made that could have helped him out in this situation that rhymes with shmomdom. Coming in at number 3, we have the Chana family. Meet Ziona Chana, a 71-year-old Indian man with 39 wives and 94 children, all living under one roof. Yep, that's right, they all live in a mansion in Baktwang village in India. Ziona is head of a religious sect which was started by his father, also called Chana. Chana is also the name of the religion, which, I mean, maybe I'm gonna start a religion and call it Felgate because my imagination is simply that strong. Ziona Chana's wife sleep in a big communal bedroom while he gets one of his very own. The youngest of his wives sleeps nearest his bedroom whilst the older are banished further away, which is pretty harsh. Ziona's wives cook, clean and prepare his baths while he basically just wanders around and has sex. Again, what a guy! Each of his wives gets to spend time with him on rotation. Yippee! Coming in at number 2, we have Dad Mohammed Mural Abdur Rahman. Yes, his first name is Dad, and he is dad to 94 children. This is all going down in the United Arab Emirates, and these come from his past 17 wives. Yes, 17 wives. His eldest is nearing 50, whilst his youngest is a baby. Now he himself is 67, so he really got a jump start on things. Dad is said to have only 4 current wives, but he would like to have 20. However, sadly for him, 4 is the current legal allowance. He would happily take on another wife as mother to his next children, but they have to be unmarried virgins, which seems like a very bizarre double standard. Dad would like to have 100 children before he dies, which, you know, rounds things off nicely. So all of the families on this list so far are currently living. However, this dad and our number 1 was so prolific that we had to mention him, even though he died in the year 1227. This guy is actually said to have fathered so many people that 0.5% of the whole world's male population are his ancestors. That's right, coming in at number 1, we have the hugely prolific Genghis Khan. Like, mate, put it away. In his 65 years on Earth, he fathered over, wait for it, 1,000 children. Some say the numbers could have been as high as 2,000. Now he officially had 11 wives, although just 1 empress. He also had many mistresses. So many. As if founding the Mongol Empire in the 1200s wasn't hard enough work, what with all that power consolidating and wars involved, but he also found time to make a town's worth of offspring. What a lad! What a fertile lad. Jumping straight on in at number 10, we have the Carson family. Meet the Carsons, parents to 18 children in California. Christy and Dave have been at it for years, literally. Their eldest is 27 and their youngest is still a toddler. The pair have said that religion isn't a factor in their family, they've just never felt that it was complete. The pair have been married for over 26 years and they're probably done having kids now. Good on them.
In our number 9 spot today, we have the Lutz family. Many of us are familiar with the Amityville horror house, but if you're not, basically it was a home that was built in 1927 by a young couple, John and Catherine Moynihan. They and their families lived there until 1965, when they then sold it to the DeFeos. Unfortunately, the fate this family met in the house was a horrific one, with a member of the family taking the lives of the rest. Less than a year after that terrible night, the house was relisted and on the market, and it was sitting at a low $80,000. The house was beautiful, it was big, and the Lutz family just couldn't turn down an offer like that. Despite the family knowing about the history of the house prior to their moving in, they still chose to. They got the home cleansed as soon as they moved in. They even hired a priest to do it for them, but it just wasn't enough because after just 28 days they needed to leave after claiming to be terrorized by some sort of paranormal paranormal activity that was going on in the house. They said that they could hear banging on the walls, one of the family members was starting to hear voices, and the doors would all slam and shut on their own. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Lykov family. In 1936, a Russian family of 4 was fleeing religious persecution, and to do so, they fled into the Siberian wilderness. They took with them a few possessions and some seeds and retreated into the forest. Here they would build a series of primitive huts as they traveled through until they reached a spot they found habitable, which was near the Mongolian border. They had no contact with the outside world and managed to be completely self-sufficient. When they originally fled into the wilderness, the family consisted of a husband and wife and their 2 children, and while out here in their new home, the couple had 2 more children, making them a family of 6. They spent their days hunting, trapping, and farming, and each year they saved their seeds in order to replant when the next season came around. One of the possessions they brought with them was a crude spinning wheel which allowed them to turn hemp into fiber for their clothing. They ate a lot of potato patties that were mixed with hemp seeds and ground rye, and they lived like this for almost 50 years. They grew as much food as the land would allow, and they rationed carefully, but each year they grew closer and closer to starvation. As they grew closer to starving, they held a council meeting where they discussed whether or not they should save their seeds to replant or eat them all. Each year they ultimately decided to save their seeds, and one winter this cost the mother her life, which she sacrificed for her children. Until a geology team in 1978 found their home, the 2 youngest children had never even met a person outside of their family. While most of the family has since passed away, one member, the youngest daughter, as of 2019, still lives in this isolated location where she has built herself quite a decent hut and has a herd of goats and a coop of chickens. In our number 7 spot today, we have the treehouse. Okay, this one is probably one of the least spooky on this list. It's more just unique, we'll call it. A family located in Hertfordshire, England has chosen to make their home in a custom-made treehouse that is located in the middle of the forest. I can't tell whether I love or hate this idea. The home consists of 2 separate lofts that are separated by rope bridges that weave through the trees. There's a main loft that has the things like the kitchen and the bathroom, and to exit the house there's either a ladder or a zip line that'll take you 70 meters down through thick brush and drop you right on a hiking trail. I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty nice and it wouldn't be too bad to wake up to the sounds of nature every day, but I'm just wondering what the bugs are like up there, and I'm wondering what happens if something breaks. You know, I'm curious about sustainability in the long term. It's kind of like a fairy tale, which I love, but I have some practicality questions. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Heinzen family. If you're one of the many people who like to mindlessly scroll through TikTok, you might have come across the page of Madison Heinzen and her Rhode Island home. What's so special about this house? Well, it's the one featured in The Conjuring. Madison's parents bought the home in 2019, and she has since documented her paranormal experiences within the home. She even claims to have seen a ghost, saying, quote, "This happened last year when I was in the kitchen. I was eating dinner by myself and I saw someone run by me. I caught it by the left corner of my eye, and all I saw was a veil and a skirt, and it just vanished into thin air. This had all happened in a span of 3 seconds, and I just sat there in complete disbelief, not knowing what to do afterwards." The reason the parents bought this home, despite its very obvious and apparent paranormal history, is because they are in fact paranormal investigators, so I guess that makes a little bit more sense. In our number 5 spot today, we have the remote island. UK couple Boris and Karen von Engelbrechten decided to leave their regular lives behind and move them and their families to the tiny remote island of Fofo, which takes about 3 days to get to. The couple had previously lived in New Zealand for a while, but they decided to make the move in order to have some space from the rest of the world. I guess this place really isn't unsettling, it's just really remote, but I'm sure it's absolutely breathtaking. Upon their arrival, the couple worked with locals to help build a beachside property using materials from the island. The rainwater that falls on the island is piped in as drinking water, and the couple says they are about 60% self-sufficient as they grow their own fruits and veggies, and then they supplement that with a trip every 3 weeks to the nearest large island to get some canned food. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Ashley family. This is a family that are the only ones who live anywhere along the 400-kilometer length of the Nowitna River in Alaska. The family has been living here for the last 18 years, despite the location being 160 kilometers from the nearest town. Once a year, the family will travel to do a massive grocery shop for cans of produce and evaporated milk, tomato paste, rice, beans, sugar, you know, those sorts of things. But aside from this food that they buy, the family lives off of the land, hunting black bears, wolves, rabbits, ducks, and beavers, and they make jam out of rose hips and berries. The family keeps track of time in their own way, changing their clocks based on the sun and daylight hours and what season it is. They also use solar power in order to power their home. While the transition into this remote lifestyle was a little worrisome at first, the isolation is now something they embrace. They say, quote, "People want to know what 18 years of isolation does to you. It changes you. You have time to have more than two thoughts on any one subject. We spend months talking about just one subject because we have time to." In our number 3 spot today, we have the isolated island. For 30 years, this family has been living alone on an island in the middle of a lake in southern Dong Nay province in Vietnam. This 4-hectare island is home to Nguyen Van Long and his family, and it became their home in the 1980s when he and his wife decided to leave their hometown and move to start a new life. They began to earn a living by sawing down trees, and they then later switched to growing corn and beans and rice. When they moved here, this place actually wasn't an island at first, but became one when the lake was created. From here, the growing of the crops got more difficult. Despite the isolation and the lack of electricity, the family stays here because they explain that life would be more difficult if they moved to another place without any money. The family studied the new island soil and realized that growing cashews might be their best source of income, which it now is. In the end, he said that he is now used to living on the island and enjoys it there since it has fresh air and is away from the hustle and bustle. He goes on to explain that their children are grown now, and now that they have their own lives, he and his wife want to stay on the island forever. In our number 2 spot today, we have the bunker. This is one of the most insane and truly messed up stories I've ever heard, and I don't know where to begin. Basically, in a remote village in the Netherlands, a few years ago it was discovered that there was a family of 8 that was living in a bunker for 9 years, awaiting what they said to be the end of time. Basically, this family group consisted of a father, 6 adults who he claimed to be his children, and then another adult tenant. The oldest child managed to escape the bunker, and he headed to a local bar where he told the owner what he had just experienced and explained that he and his siblings needed help. This is what led to charges for Gerrit Jan van Dorsten, who was the supposed father, as well as for Josef Brunner, who was the tenant. Preliminary investigation revealed that the adult children were made to believe that they were the last humans on Earth. In the end, Gerrit committed numerous unbelievable and horrific crimes and was charged with a multitude of them. Just last year, however, he was deemed unfit to stand trial, and it's not exactly clear where things will go from here. It's also apparently divided the children, as the oldest 4 were in support of the arrest, with the youngest 2 being against it. All in all, this is just a horrible situation, and I feel terribly for the ones involved. In our number 1 spot today, we have Esther Sturmer. In 1941, Esther Sturmer was living in a little Ukrainian village with her 6 children. They were one of the few Jewish families who lived in the village until late that year when Nazi forces came. Esther, along with her family and 36 of the other Jewish people from her village, were able to escape, and they then spent nearly a year and a half living underground in pitch black in 2 vast caves. The group found these deep underground caves that run for miles, and they lived down there for 500 days in total darkness, but they later said that for them, the caves provided them the freedom they were robbed of during the war. 2 of Esther's children, 70 years later, spoke about the entire thing and said, quote, "We had a very smart mother. If I wouldn't have had this type of mother, I wouldn't be alive." They also said, quote, "You went to sleep and you had a pillow and you covered up with good blankets. What else you want? You were in paradise." The families would forage for food at night, they built showers and latrines underground, and they lived like this until April of 1944, when the Russian army liberated the area and the 5 families were able to come back into the light of day. They survived, and the 2 sons said, "We were just happy to survive. Then life started to turn normal, and that's it. We tried to get ahead. We tried to survive after the war."